Welcome back to the PricePlow Podcast. We're excited to have a repeat visitor here, Ed Dosz of NutriScience Innovations. So, Ed, you are the VP of Science and Innovation at NutriScience. We recently had you on episode 166 of the podcast talking about Maltor. We got into broccoli and everything. And since then, we've been covering ButyraGen by NutriScience. And so I kind of want to make this the whole, explain to us why butyrate is important and how ButyraGen helps with the basically the whole gut microbiome, but also I think there's a lot of gut brain axis stuff to discuss here and a whole lot of other stuff with regards to butyrate. So can you really quickly reintroduce yourself? We already had you on episode 166, and then let's kind of get into why this is so important for gut health and whole body health in general.
Sure. Absolutely. Really happy to be back. Really like what both you, Mike, and Ben, you guys do. Big fan of the show, even when I'm not the one who's on it. Just brief introduction. Again, I am the VP of Science and Innovation with NutriScience. Been with the company for going on 2 years now. Big fan of the supplement industry. Been involved for over a decade. My background is food science, human nutrition, which I have my PhD in food science. Which is why we got into our broccoli talk last time. That was my primary research focus, cruciferous vegetables. So lifelong fan there. And yeah, ButyraGen. It's probably, I'm as close to ButyraGen now as I was to broccoli. So it's really a passion project of mine. And really, really happy to be on the show to discuss it a little more deeply with you guys.
Okay, so yeah, where do we begin with this? Because obviously gut health is a massive issue and it's of critical importance with everyone. So we have a couple articles where we've kind of put this together. How do you begin the discussion? If we're just someone off the street talking about health in general, where does gut health fall within your list of priorities? And then how do we break into the whole story here?
Gut health is probably top of mind for me when it comes to overall well-being and health. You think about the different organ axis connection to the gut. It is huge. Gut brain, gut liver, gut skin. It really touches every aspect of our lives. I would start by introducing what ButyraGen is, just so people are aware. The word ButyraGen, you have the word butyrate is in there. So butyrate is a short chain fatty acid. And it's really the primary one that people think of when they're thinking about gut health. It is also a complex of some prebiotic fibers. So we have sun fiber or partially hydrolyzed guar gum, as well as acacia fiber is also an integral component of ButyraGen. Why short chain fatty acids? Why would you need to take something like this instead of just consuming your normal diet and producing this? It's true that if you are a big fan of prebiotic fibers, your body could possibly be producing butyrate. Also, possibly not. It's really dependent on the state of your microbiome, your gut microbiome. And what ButyraGen does is it takes that out of the equation. It's a direct butyrate generator that's producing butyrate regardless on the state of your microbiome. And it's really doing so. It's tributyrin is one of the key ingredients in ButyraGen. And what that allows you to do is consume that when it gets to your small intestine. You have digestive enzymes that are present. Everyone has digestive enzymes that are present in the small intestine. You're cleaving the glycerol backbone off of tributyrin, and for every molecule of tributyrin you're consuming, you're releasing 3 molecules of butyrate. That glycerol that got cleaved off, as well as the prebiotic fibers I talked about, will continue downstream where they're going to get to your large intestine, and they're likely going to ferment and produce some short-chain fatty acids, some of which could be butyrate or others.
So I guess backing up even further, why is butyrate important, or how do you define short chain fatty acids? Kind of give us the 101 overview on this. Would you call it a class of compounds, or
I I would call short chain fatty acids a class of compounds, and I think of them more of systemic signaling molecules. That's helping your body to regulate things like immunity, inflammation, metabolism, and as we talked about, some other organs. So maybe brain function, some cognitive aspects play a role in that as well. Um, and it's interesting because when you think of short chain fatty acids, what's typically leading to their production in the body? Resistant starches. Not a common phrase or food selection in the U.S. You talk about green bananas. I don't know about you. I'm not a big green banana guy myself. And we're still at the tail end of the summer months, so there's still barbecue. But cooked and cooled potatoes, another primary source of resistant starches. I'm a little limited on what I can do in terms of how much potato salad I can consume on a weekly basis.
This is actually really interesting because there was like a trend a couple years back where people were talking about making fresh potatoes and rice every day because if you cool them, they become resistant. You don't actually absorb the carbohydrates. But there's actually, this is mostly like bodybuilders like wanting all of their carbs in their diet. But like there's actually like a functional benefit to it if you actually did do it. But most people most people are not focusing on resistant starch consumption.
It's true, but from a digestive benefit aspect, it is useful. It's something I keep in mind, or it's just what I lie and tell myself while I'm eating potato salad, where I'm like, there's a reason for this.
Okay,
Okay.
so what's happening here? So you have a potato, you cook it, you cool it. Do the chemical bonds reconfigure or something like that, and you get a less digestible product that then instead needs
It's
to get
easier to
fermented.
ferment. Yes, it's easier to ferment because of that. Um, that's a really good description or summary of what a resistant starch is.
Okay, and why is that important then? So
Just because it's not something that people are typically getting, they're not getting in their normal diet. So this is really where ButyraGen stemmed, is an alternative for these dietary sources, where you could be eating enough prebiotic fiber, you might have a healthy enough gut microbiome. There's a lot of what ifs when it comes to kind of controlled generation of short chain fatty acids, and ButyraGen is taking that out of the equation and just giving you a direct generating source of butyrate.
okay, and if we were just eating tons of fiber, it doesn't necessarily make is. I guess what are the alternatives? It seems like what I'm going to line this up to is like this is the exact definition of why we want to supplement something. We're not getting enough in the diet, or our bodies are not equipped to make it properly ourselves. And that's where it's like, all right, dietary supplementation, that's like perfect. We're not even like going for, some of these supplement ingredients, let's be honest, like caffeine is more of a drug-like effect. We're not, supplementing the diet as much as just going for this effect. Whereas this seems like, what I like the real deal definition of supplementation. So my alternatives are eating foods that we're probably not eating, or is it potentially eating tons and tons of fiber and hoping that I'm able to ferment that?
It would be fiber and hoping you were able to ferment that. Not everyone's gut microbiome is created equally. I mean, I think I've seen some of your podcasts where you've said similar things. The gut microbiome is very complex and it's different person to person, and it's affected by things like medication that people are taking. What is their typical diet like? So not everyone is situated the same way about generating short chain fatty acids. Another option would be to consume butyrate directly, like something like sodium butyrate. There's an issue with that. If you've ever tried sodium butyrate, I have tried it personally. It is an appalling smell.
Well,
Um,
okay. This is something I wanted to ask you about. In the creation of ButyraGen, how much of the creation of this ingredient had to do with the terrible flavor and smell, and how much of it was a functional difference. Because there's a few different products on the market that kind of claim to be in a similar class to this, but some of them just smell terrible. So yeah, how much of it was that split there?
Oh, I don't want to say it's equal, because I do think from a functionality standpoint that ButyraGen is superior based on how it's formulated. But I would be lying if I said that none of it was based on the aroma and the taste. Butyrate is, I mean, it's a necessary component. They're putting sources of butyrate in infant formula and things of that nature. Infants aren't really too picky when it comes to things like that. Typically, parents are the picky ones. It's characteristic of like vomit is how you describe what typical butyrate is like. So it's not very appealing. But using tributyrin and using our fiber complex both go hand in hand with greatly reducing, if not getting rid of, the aroma completely, and also cutting down on the taste.
So tributyrin itself, that is probably better than sodium butyrate.
Absolutely. Any aroma you're getting from tributyrin is actually from residual butyrate that wasn't cleaned up in the processing.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah,
so it's manufacturing challenges.
Yeah, tributyrin's a triester. It doesn't really have an aroma of its own. So it's really the manufacturing that leads to a high quality product that doesn't have an aroma.
Okay, I didn't know that. So you got a couple things going on here. You're using quality, and then you're bolstering it with the added fiber sources, providing some fuel. Okay, I thought this is good to know. So then some of the tributyrin that we've had that doesn't smell good, that indicates potential quality concerns.
Yes.
Wow.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
is there a purity concern? Like how I'm sorry, we're getting off track
No, it's fine.
here, but like, is there like a significant amount of butyrate left over, or is this just like a small amount from the manufacturing that like it creates a terrible aroma, or like is it really a quality concern, or is it like something that's like kind of built in the process?
It's less of a quality concern. It's the threshold for detecting butyrate is so low that you're talking like parts per billion, and your nose is just trained to pick up that smell because it's not good.
wow.
So it's not necessarily even a quality issue. It's just the higher quality material you have, which is something NutriScience really prides itself on, the less of this aroma you're going to have.
And then you add in the fiber and
The fiber. This fiber complex kind of helps encapsulate some of any of that residual smell and diminishes some of the taste. I'm not going to tell you you'd want to drink a big glass of it, but in a capsule form, you don't really have to worry about like omega-3 fish burps, or in this case, butyrate burps coming up after.
Gotcha. Okay, so and that's been a big challenge, is the smell and the taste. So you're fixing a lot of it through quality and everything. And then can you kind of get us into give us some of the general benefits of increased butyrate consumption, whether it's sodium butyrate or yours, and then let's talk about the studies that you've specifically done on ButyraGen.
Sure. Just some general butyrate science. I'll start with metabolic benefits, just because I know these are areas of interest. So glucose regulation. There's some research showing that butyrate on its own can improve insulin sensitivity, kind of via AMPK activation. So that can help stimulate GLP-1 release for better blood sugar control. There's some science that shows brown fat activation, so you can increase fat oxidation. I know that's a big area of concern. People like to see that. There's some liver and systemic benefits as well, like gluconeogenesis and lipid metabolism. There's some research talking about bile acids, and just more adipose tissue things, gut-brain axis signaling. So neuroinflammation, neurotransmitter supports with signaling of GABA. Immune is a big thing people think about when they talk about butyrate. HDAC inhibition. So it's really an all over it's an all over thing. But anti-inflammatory markers increase. There's just so many positives outside of digestive well-being. And I know some of our clinical research is very much focused on digestive well-being. But just thinking how much farther direct butyrate generation can go in the body and some other benefits it can have as well.
Would you say that is it really a direct, or is it downstream that you're getting those benefits?
I think both. I genuinely think both, and that's an area we've been discussing lately at NutriScience. We're really seeing kind of a two-pronged effect, like some downstream effects, but also some direct that you can't really dispute as being direct. So it's really exciting. It's a really exciting area. Butyrate, I'd say, has been popular for the last three or 4 years. People have been talking about short chain fatty acids and butyrate, and there's a big gap to fill between direct human clinical research and what people think is happening based on a series of animal studies and in vitro work. So we're happy to play our role filling that gap, and we have no plans on stopping. This is one of NutriScience's probably biggest focus areas.
Okay, cool. Can you go into that any further? Like, do you have any speculations on some of the extra stuff that it's doing? Like, one thing I find interesting is you've mentioned it's a signaling molecule, whereas I thought it was kind of just substrate for stuff happening in the gut. And there's other short chain fatty acids, so I'm not sure if they matter either. But I'm kind of curious, like, what exactly, or what some of your theories are that we do not have proven.
Well, and they do. The other short chain fatty acids absolutely do matter. And when people think about short chain fatty acids, they're primarily thinking of the primary energy source for colonocytes, the cells that line the colon. It's used as fuel. I think butyrate accounts for around 70% of that energy is coming from butyrate specifically. But I think that's selling butyrate short. Just saying, oh, it's a fuel source for your colon cells. That's limited. So what we're actually seeing happen through some of our clinical research and preclinical research, ButyraGen, the tributyrin and butyrigin is being broken down and cleaved in the small intestine. We're seeing it be absorbed into the small intestine. So instead of going to the colon where it's just going to be used as an energy source for your colonocytes and maybe cross feed some other bacteria, we're actually seeing it be utilized in the small intestine, which better helps it enter circulation and makes it more of a signaling molecule than if it was just going directly to the colon. Some other areas, which I'll get in some deeper details when we start talking through the clinical research. I'm really thinking that we're having a positive impact on the estrobolome, and that's really the collection of bacteria and gut microbes that metabolize and regulate circulating estrogen levels. So it's particularly bacteria that produce beta-glucuronidase, the enzyme beta-glucuronidase, which can reactivate estrogen, and then it can be reabsorbed and re-enter circulation. I'm really thinking, just based on some of the results we saw in our clinical research, that it's helping to potentially help normalize these estrogen levels or support the estrobolome in general.
Interesting. Okay. And this actually ties into, so would you say it's more specific to women? Obviously men have estrogen too, and it's an important molecule for everyone, but
they do. But in terms of reactivating and reabsorbing estrogen, it is much less important in men. The levels we're talking about are relatively low in men compared to women, where you're seeing a much larger number, and it has a much greater effect. Obviously, there's a sweet spot of estrogen. You don't want to have too much. You don't want to have too little, which is why I'm saying help normalize. And that's just based on some of the findings we had in our most recent clinical study.
Okay. So like primarily we have this, your colon cells are not just like driven by carbs or ketones or anything like that. They almost have like their own macronutrient in a way. Like they don't care about your
It,
calories. 70% of the colon is feeding off of butyrate. So people who
yeah,
are low in butyrate, whether they're not supplementing, they don't have a diet that's producing it, their gut isn't producing it, they are not getting their colon the energy substrate it needs to do the job. So literally everything could go wrong after that. Pretty much, your colon's not working. Okay, that's kind of like that's the starting like blueprint for this is a good idea to take it if you have even any type of gut problem or like a constipation type problem
yeah.
or anything like that. It almost seems like you might as well just throw this in there, assuming it's safe, which you can go over some of that. It just seems like
Oh,
this could be
absolutely.
an easy first line of defense. But beyond that, though, you're able to get some of this into the bloodstream, right? Is that not just
It, exactly. We're seeing changes in triglyceride levels and things that are indicative of entering the bloodstream while taking this product.
cool?
So it's really interesting actually, because if you're having butyrate enter circulation, it can act as that signaling molecule that we want it to act as. Um, and we're I think that's one of the most exciting parts about ButyraGen. It's not limited to your colon. It's not limited to your large intestine and having those benefits. You're having, and again, we'll talk about this a little more when we get into the study, but both upper and lower GI benefits. So you think colon, you're thinking lower GI. We're seeing improvements, pretty significant improvements in upper GI as well.
Okay, cool. Because yeah, what I saw is that in the colon, and I'm not sure if this works ever else, but it's actually going on to produce ATP in the colon. I don't, but elsewhere it might not. Maybe it's just being used as a signaling molecule or something like that. Okay, we've brought up the study. Like I don't know if you have anything else to introduce. I'm trying to kind of get the framework for this molecule where
Sure.
we see very importantly it does this one thing, but there's a whole bunch of other stuff that now we're starting to learn about, and people are generally feeling better with it. Is kind of especially if you're not making it yourself. So what is there anything else to background before getting
Yeah,
into
I
your
mean,
specific
I think
research?
before we get into the human clinical study, we did, as NutriScience typically does, we made sure we did our diligence before we really got into a human host. We did some ex vivo work, looking with human stool samples, um, looking at gas production, because you look at some of these prebiotic fibers, you talk about inulin, things of that nature. You're it's hard to stay on supplements like that, when it's like, oh, I have digestive issues because I'm taking inulin, or I have gas and bloating because I'm taking inulin, or other prebiotic fibers. So we did some comparison studies about butyrate generation, in human stool, with different fibers and our ButyraGen material. Um, and we found 200 milligrams of ButyraGen, which is the effective dose that we're really marketing the product as, was as effective of greater than 1 gram of a lot of these fibers when it came to butyrate generation, and didn't have issues with gas production or things of that nature. We also did a little, we did some research combined with probiotics, looking to see if ButyraGen would be maybe a um, good combination with probiotics. And we actually saw synergy, where we looked at like LGG, pretty common, universally used probiotic, combined with ButyraGen, and we had like a 1 + 1 = 3 effect when it came to butyrate generation, which was really exciting for us as well. So that really fueled us to do. We have 2 human clinicals that are completed now. The first was really looking at mechanism of action and safety. Just saying, is it well tolerated? And it helped us define our mechanism of action with the small intestine absorption, but it also let us know the material was so well tolerated. We didn't really have any versus it was versus a placebo. There was no difference between placebo and active, as it came to any reported issues, stomach upset, anything of that nature, which was great to see, and really inspired us to do our very large scale clinical study that wrapped up a few months ago.
Okay, so I have one question before we get into that study. The ex vivo study, can you explain that a little bit more? Were you actually adding
Yep.
ButyraGen powder
Yep.
to stool and seeing what happened and seeing if it like bubbled up and made gas? Is that, or
Yes.
am I way off?
Yes. No, you're not way off. You hit nail on the head.
Yeah, that's cool. Were you the one handling the
I was not.
test tubes?
I was not. That was maybe back in my PhD days. Luckily, I was not the one that was gloved up in that situation.
You throw the intern on that job, right?
Um,
Okay.
Yeah.
So
But then the large scale human clinical that recently completed that we've published some of the work from. It was great. We partnered with Radical Sciences on this. We recruited. We had a starting population of like 596 people across 48 U.S. states. So it's a very very diverse group of people. And one of the things I want to specifically call out: 68% of the people recruited were females, which is something that NutriScience has seen be the case where females have been pretty underrepresented in a lot of clinical studies, especially in the supplement space. So this was something we requested, something we needed. We wanted to see a large population in the study be females, and we were luckily able to recruit thanks to Radical and make that happen. So what we really did was we recruited people that had a self-reported interest in improving their digestive health and well-being. So these are people that were looking to improve their digestive health. They weren't people that were diagnosed with diseases or issues. They just wanted to have improved digestive health. I'd fall into that category. If someone would ask me, do you want to have, yes, I would love better digestive health. So that's really who we recruited. The study was 6 weeks. It was a 6-week study, taking 200 milligrams of ButyraGen or a placebo daily, just once daily. The results that we had were pretty interesting. I'd say that the largest overall benefit we had was a reduction in reported belly pain. And belly pain is kind of a broad term. It sounds very specific. Oh, belly pain. It's not clinically. It's really diagnosed from pain from like here to your groin. So it's kind of an encompassing statement. So the entire population had significant improvements in belly pain.
when you say from here to the groin, for the people listening on the audio feed, you were around the collar level.
Upper chest, lower neck to groin.
So that would include heartburn.
I would say that it would likely be captured if the pain
Right.
perception of heartburn. Maybe
Okay.
not the acidy burps that
Yeah,
would
right.
normally go along with it.
But yeah, if you have that kind of like lower chest discomfort or whatever, like that would.
Sure.
Okay.
You usually know what it's coming from, yeah.
Do you have theories on why there would be a reduction in pain if you're not? I mean, this isn't a pain reliever or anything like that.
It's not a pain reliever. But it could. There's a few different reasons we're thinking it could be. It could just be helping with typical digestive issues. So it's helping you with digestion. There's some research that shows that butyrate in general can help create tight junctions, so helping decrease leaky gut occurrences. And I will say another finding that kind of links back to this. We did a DQLQ, so we had a questionnaire that was focused on digestive quality of life. Participants that were experiencing reflux, so somewhere up high in the upper digestive system, and people that were experiencing constipation, self-reported constipation, self-reported reflux, they both had significant improvements in their digestive quality of life. So if you're using the bathroom consistently, regularly, you're decreasing the amount of reflux you experience. It makes sense that you would experience an improvement in belly pain.
I don't know if this is. I'm sorry if this already got mentioned. Do you have like a timeline on the belly pain improvements and the digestive quality of life improvements?
Yes. So the belly pain, we saw improvements that began in week 5 and went through the remainder of the study week 6. for the DQ-LQ improvements, we saw improvements in as early as week 1 that lasted throughout the remainder of the study.
Wow.
And this was versus placebo. It wasn't just like a versus baseline, it's versus placebo, and we had those significant improvements.
That was statistically significant. Like, now, would we be able to make a claim on a bottle using that data?
I think so. I think you could. I think you could talk about a fast-acting improvement as it pertains to digestive quality of life.
Yeah, within 1 week. That's
yeah.
Obviously reduction in belly pain for someone who's suffering and everything. And if you're not able to get it out, it's brutal. So that's like a key. But people want, how it is. Everyone wants their experiential energy drinks and products. They're not going to have an experiential gut health supplement, but efficacy within 1 week for a lot of people, great. That is about as, like, to me, as experiential as it's going to get. Because at some point if you're feeling improvements, and I'm guessing like bowel movements or something else, was being helped. That's just my guess, though. Yeah. No,
exactly. And what we also thought to be really of benefit, we did some post hoc analysis, and we looked at women, just women, and we see that belly pain improvement go from, I believe it was around 18% of the population experienced this improvement over the placebo group, and we took that up to, I think it was 20%, looking just at women, and taking that a step further. If you looked at the postmenopausal group, the people that reported that they were postmenopausal, that increased even further. I think it was around 24% over the placebo. Which is linking me back to my estrobolome story of why did we see this even greater increase in women and then increasing even further in postmenopausal women. This is one of our I don't want to say it's a theory, because butyrate does have some information about the estrobolome, but in our case with ButyraGen, it's kind of our hypothesis of why it had this enhanced benefit.
Okay, that's interesting. So people listening can start getting ideas of where they could target this.
Absolutely.
And I would imagine. What's that, Ben?
I was just saying it's fascinating. People who are listening probably didn't notice. All of us started nodding our heads at the same time when we heard postmenopausal. All of us started nodding our heads.
You're like,
I understand.
It's all coming together, right? And it seems like I think you made a good selection of picking more women for this study. And I want to get into the experience with radical sciences a little bit off topic later, but in my opinion, it seems like women are the ones who care a little bit more about gut health and digestion than guys. Guys either just, I don't know, the only way out is through kind of mentality, or we just don't seem to care as much, whereas women don't want to deal with the nonsense that we're willing to deal with, maybe. I don't know.
I think for digestive health, women do have an increased incidence of digestive upset compared to men. It's not just like a feeling. It's really a known piece of information. So that was one of the reasons we really wanted a larger population of women to participate in the study, because that's the group that's suffering from this the most. Also, when you start to look at certain categories, when you look at postmenopausal women, those hormone level changes can increase digestive issues. You look at women who are still menstruating normally, those hormone fluctuations can cause digestive issues. That's why we really wanted to capture that, and why we're thinking we're seeing this enhanced benefit.
Awesome. And this was a study were you the author or co-author, or you're the main guy on it, aren't you?
I was the primary author. Michael Layla with NutriScience is also one of the authors on the study. And it was a great experience. We collected so much useful data. And the population was so large that was looked at. You can really make some significant findings.
I personally love it when we have someone on the podcast who actually wrote the study. So that's I don't know. I think it's cool. Hey, your citation 36 on this article. How cool is that? So, but either way, but there will be the naysayers. Oh yeah, you funded and wrote your own study on your own ingredient. How do you combat that? Like,
sure.
how
It It was independently conducted by Radical Sciences. We had no control over really what happened once the study started, the data that was reported to us. You'll see one of the other authors on the manuscript as well was a third-party statistician that did not have anything to do with NutriScience. He was hired to process the data because we didn't want anyone to think, oh, they fudged the numbers or they did this or that to get significance. That science is supposed to be transparent. NutriScience is really committed to the peer review process and publishing the work that's conducted in peer review journals, and that's what we did with this.
Have you guys been using Radical for multiple studies, or is this just this recent one that we're talking about?
It's not a one-off. We're working with them on some other things as well.
I'm sorry, you mentioned them and I forgot which one we were actually talking about. Is this the digestive quality of life study that that you did with through Radical, or is this the female estrogen one?
No, it's all same study.
Got it.
All the same study. It was really focusing on the digestive system, and the female data was just captured as well in that process.
They're an interesting company. We've interfaced with them a few times, and they only have certain setups for studies, but it sounds like that is a not biomarker, but that's a certain like variable that was really applicable for you guys.
It really was. This it's a virtually conducted study. It works through validated questionnaires. They use validated questionnaires. So the questionnaires themselves, as well as the questions within, are validated. So you can really look at those and break those down by question even. And it is for digestive well-being and things like that. Questionnaire data works very well. And the 6-week nature of this also suits very well, just to capture actual significant changes that are happening. Because like everybody, someone occasionally has the bad digestive health day, and you can't necessarily pin it on what it was, why did it happen. But taking a 6-week study instead of just a tiny snapshot gives you a broader view of someone's digestive well-being.
Yeah, I really appreciated when I asked you about the timeline, like that made things a lot more clear that it was actually significant, because if you're just giving it to them once and testing what happens when that
that's too acute for digestive health, honestly.
Yeah, and especially like with normal people.
Yes,
yeah, like normal people don't track every single thing they put in their mouth. They don't pay that much attention to gut health. So if you can improve their quality of life while they're still, maybe eating a little bit of fast food, or eating some stuff that's been old in the refrigerator for a little bit or whatever, like a normal people, I think that's very impactful.
Absolutely.
I find this interesting. So you had to basically do a run of 600 bottles or more. If it's 6 weeks, that's more. Yeah. Okay. So that's like a legit manufacturing run at that point. Did you also make the placebo, or does that?
Yes.
Okay.
We made the placebo as well. I will tell you, an intern and I labeled each of those bottles individually. We bought a hand crank labeler, and by the end the handle wore off. And I had to stick a screwdriver in there just to give me something to hold on to crank these labels out.
That's hilarious.
It was a fun process, honestly, and it was worthwhile. Now, after, obviously, it's easy to say it's worthwhile after you get the results, but it was worthwhile.
Okay, what was the placebo then?
Just a bunch of inactive ingredients. I think it's mostly microcrystalline cellulose.
Okay, because a lot of times the placebo, you don't want a placebo that's actually going to have its own effects, and sometimes the placebos are like fiber-ish type sources and stuff.
So. No fiber was really included in there. And that was, honestly, you asked a peer review question. You asked a question that we got from peer reviewers that we had to answer and provide justification to. So good. Look at you. You could be peer reviewing here, Mike.
Podcasting.
You got the deep cut questions.
Yeah, nice. It's good to know. But podcasting's more fun though, especially with this community. This is a fun industry, as we know. So, getting back to the statistician, was that Devin Conley then on the?
Yep.
Okay. I real quickly looked at what I like about this is that I looked at his all the studies he's been involved with, and it's like all over the map. It's not just supplements, so that's important, is that you have a legit statistician who isn't just some like guy we get in the supplement industry to do some supplement studies. This is a person who's done research on things that we've never even thought of or heard of. So
I don't know. I don't know if he has been formally published in a peer-reviewed manuscript before this. He was pretty excited when I talked to him about it, and he was like, wow, I've never been like published like this before. And we were pretty insistent, where it's like, you did the stats work. We're not suited to talk about it the way you are. So we want you to write the methods section or help with the methods section. And he obliged.
That is hilarious. This is okay. So I may have misspoken. Yeah, there's a lot of Devin Conleys out there. We don't even get into.
It sounds like a common name, honestly.
Yes. Okay. We actually worked way in my former life. We worked at the same company for a short amount of time. Oh, he was there way later. Okay, that's kind of funny. Wow. Anyway, that's pretty cool. Small world. So you have an ingredient here that's helping women, especially, to reduce their belly pain. Well, a lot of times what I like to do on this podcast is have you kind of put together a formula yourself in ways. So like you've already mentioned that this might work pretty well with a probiotic. So
you know what? It wouldn't just work well. It pairs well with, because the water activity is so low for ButyraGen. And when you work with probiotics, you're very focused on stability. Am I going to hit my shelf life stability? And knowing that you have a supplement like ButyraGen to pair this with, where you're not going to impact stability at all because the water activity is so low, is pretty helpful, I would say.
Okay, so was it the probiotic? It was LGG? Is that what you would stack it with?
LGG.
Okay, what is that short for? Do you even know? Is the lactobacillus kind of?
Honestly, I don't want to.
That's okay.
It. I might butcher. It's a lactobacillus rhamnosus.
Rhamnosus GG. Oh yes. Okay. Yeah, we've seen this a lot. Okay.
Yes.
Anything else in the gut health world that you like that you would ever stack this with? Are there any other fuels or weed feed? Any of that kind of stuff that you like? Or
I obviously like the fibers that we've paired ButyraGen with, especially sun fiber. Great product. A lot of clinical research behind it. I would say not combined with this product. I do enjoy digestive enzymes. You wouldn't want to pair that with this product because you'd be freeing all this butyrate and creating a product that smelled terrible in a bottle. But I am a general fan of digestive enzymes. There's so many good prebiotic blends that you could also pair this with, as well as probiotic blends.
Yeah, I was going to ask about the prebiotic idea, because at the beginning of this podcast we talked a lot about like whether or not your gut is going to use prebiotic fiber to make butyrate, and it seems like, well, at least when I've made content on this product, that's a big question, like whether or not your gut really could work with prebiotic fiber, and this kind of goes around it, but it seems like maybe we should be addressing both for end consumers, because a lot of people do need that help.
They do, and it's not just the difficult part about using something like probiotics is that you don't always get them to colonize your gut. So this is something where it's like you can't just take this for a week and then throw in the towel and say, I made a change. No, this is something you likely have to continue to take for quite some time. If you have hope of it colonizing and giving you these added benefits. Just thinking this would likely fit really well in, could be helpful in a menopause relief type product as well. There's a number of good products out there for menopause. There's some soy isoflavone products that are out there.
I have a bit of a basic question, and maybe it might help people who are listening and aren't super educated. A lot of the times we talk about fiber and we talk about that gumming up or that gelling, like people talk about that as a function, like that is what is becoming like harder and pushing kind of stool through.
Sure. So you have to remember there's soluble, insoluble fibers. Some of those fibers are bulking and they gel, and it's really it's kind of absorbing water and then it's pushing things through on the way out. Not all fiber does that. Um, so like you spoke about psyllium husk. That's obviously a gel forming fiber. That's something that you need to drink. I mean, even if you read the bottles, it pretty much tells you to drink these things right away. A lot of these gelling fibers also negatively impact the absorption of other things when you consume them because they're trapped in this gel matrix. If you read a bottle of a lot of these psyllium husk fibers, they say don't take within a certain period of taking medication or other supplements.
I'm so glad you said that. That was my follow-up question. We get a lot of people concerned, like, if you take, a lot of people take fiber in the morning or at night, and there's other supplements, especially like in capsule form, that it, I don't know if I've ever seen it, but I imagine it just kind of pushes those capsules right out of you.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Mm-hmm. For the record, I'm a fiber at night guy, and so I find it
I'm
perfect.
also a fiber at night guy.
Yeah, me too.
I used to be afraid if something would wake you up earlier, never a problem or anything. So it definitely helps.
Early on in fitness, for me, I was recommended back when we used to drink casein at night. I don't know if you guys remember when we took. I don't know
there's a lot of people that still do casein at night. Honestly, you wouldn't even be alone if you did it right now.
Good, I'm glad, because I always loved the ritual of that. I always thought that was cool. And early on, it was recommended to me, hey, at the time it was just throw Metamucil in with your casein, and it's just a really easy way to get some fiber in. With your protein at night, but it's something that just always stuck with me. I've always taken fiber at night. It's nice.
Oh man, but the psyllium would gel even more with the casein. That must have just been a sludge at that point.
Yeah,
I think sun fiber is a better play here for that.
You had to slam.
I agree.
For sure. Yeah, but I'm going to definitely get some sun fiber, and I'd love to try that out instead of any gelling stuff because I've always been a Metamucil person.
Yeah, a little bit of both. Okay, cool. And so that is part of the. So the 200 milligrams is not 200 milligrams of straight butyrate. 200 milligrams of ButyraGen.
It's 100 milligrams of tributyrin, and then the other half is essentially all prebiotic fibers.
Some Okay, cool. So what else if you're going to run another study on ButyraGen, where would you take it next? What are some of your wish list things that you think you'd like to explore?
I talked about liver health earlier. Mm-hmm. So looking at bile acid production, things like that for liver health, fat digestion. I brought up the estrobolome and how we have our thought process behind why this is working in an enhanced fashion for women and even more so postmenopausal women. So actually doing a study on the estrobolome, looking at maybe circulating estrogen levels, things of that nature, and then the gut-brain axis. I don't know about you, but especially when I travel, I'm nervous about traveling in general, and I find that I have digestive issues because of that. And I know I'm an N of 1 right now, but taking ButyraGen has relieved and resolved a lot of that in me personally. So looking at that in a more formalized way, where this gut-brain axis connection gets a little more depth and detail, is really what I think the next step is for ButyraGen.
Okay, I like that a lot. It's been a while. Episode 150, we went into liver health and bile theory, and it was a really good episode talking about the importance of bile acid production and getting the liver to do its job, getting the intestine, getting the colon then to do its job. And it seems like this is actually a really good fit in that paradigm where if you are not producing enough bile acids, you're not going to be triggering enough bowel movements, and this could potentially be a way of supporting that and help you keep things clear, which then subsequently could reduce the belly pain. So this definitely fits in the paradigm. I would love to see some of that. I recently had an online argument, we'll say, not totally, but I posted something slightly inflammatory. Dr. Sean Baker, really well-known carnivore dieter, basically got wrecked when he posted about this. He went to Europe, where most Americans feel better when they go to Europe and they eat the diet, do all the walking and everything. But he was having extraordinary amount of constipation issues because he added some fiber and cheese to his diet. My response is that he is not producing enough bile. And I think what happens with a diet such as the carnivore diet is that you're not creating the short chain fatty acids that you need, because eventually you're getting like no fiber into the diet whatsoever. Eventually the bifidobacteria can die off, and now you're not able to produce it, and so you're stuck. And so a lot of people get what's called the carnivore trap, where they can only eat carnivore because you eat like 3 apple slices and you're wrecked. And so I think this is me hypothesizing, but I believe that using something like ButyraGen might be one path out that should be explored for some people who want to get back to a slightly more reasonable diet. I think like carnivore is great if you have so many issues, you need to do the full elimination diet is the way to go. But I want to be able to go to my daughter's birthday party and have a piece of cake, so like I want to be normal. And so I think ButyraGen might be a tool for us to test for some of these people. This is a very, very corner case, but the bile acid connection, I think, is an important one for the people who are just like off into like these corner cases where no one's coming to save you and you have to start tinkering on your own. I would definitely try even a half dose or a quarter dose of ButyraGen and see what happens, and see if you can get your short chain fatty acids repopulated. Like it all just connected for me right here. So I appreciate that. I don't know, like 3 people understand what I'm talking about, but we, in episode 150, we kind of get into some of the bile acid stuff. So that could be one to listen to. Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Oh, I mean, you did most of the talking on that one. So thank you. Honestly, I think that is a potentially useful case.
Yeah. What happens is that whether it's through doing, I don't know, I've gone back and forth on diets many times, but we oftentimes pigeonhole ourselves into eating the same things over and over, whether it's healthy things or just the same processed crap over and over. And I don't want a ridiculously varied diet, but I do enjoy when Joey Savage mentions that he wants to be able, like the vulture is able to eat anything. Like how cool would it be to have their gut microbiome and just be able to handle everything? I want to be able to handle the insults, and we can't handle the insults if we don't have at least a little bit of variation. We need to be ready for stuff. And so we need sometimes, that's the point of dietary supplementation, is if we've taken ourselves out of the equation so badly that, I'm just eating Mountain Dew and Cheetos all day long, how do you get back? And I think dietary supplements and minerals and stuff like that are a way to walk back in without like just killing yourself over, just throwing in a ton of fiber, like right from the start. So
true. I mean, it's true. I'm a big believer of variety being the spice of life. I'm an everything in moderation kind of guy. I am definitely not just a carnivore. I love vegetables. I wouldn't have done my research on broccoli if I didn't have some affinity for vegetables. So I think bile acid is very useful in terms of digestion. Obviously, the higher fat diets you consume, you're usually producing more bile acid. You have a lot of vegetables, not a lot of meat. There's a pretty significant decline in bile acid production. So it depends. We can't be the vultures that eat everything, because we also, I mean, at the end of the day, you look at the acid content of a vulture's stomach when it comes to destroying pathogens and things like that it's eating. It's not just the microbiome. They have a great microbiome immune system, I'm sure, but they're also have an aggressive means of digestion that we have and we don't at the same time.
Very cool. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, that's all I have about some of that stuff. So more things to play with for sure. Sweet. So, does broccoli have anything to do with any of the butyrate production, or is that completely separate?
I'm pretty sure it's separate. I haven't really, when I was doing the research, I wasn't looking at short chain fatty acid production.
Right.
Obviously, they're high sulfur content in the glucosinolates. Not sure they play a role in short chain fatty acid production, though.
All right. Ben, do you have anything else here, or were there?
No, this has been fascinating. Thank you guys so much for. I mean, even the vulture talk sounds great.
Well, that's Joey's thing. I don't need to be a vulture, but I do want to be able to eat the cake without losing my mind over it. Like,
well,
it would be crazy. Broccoli is full of fiber, so you would probably ferment that fiber and then produce short chain fatty acids.
There you go.
But not from like a specific like upregulation of production. Just normal dietary fiber has.
Yeah. I also just think like a lot of the conversation started with the fact that most Americans' gut microbiome is just, it's fucked in its own way. You know, it's sorry, now you can cut that. Now we have to explicit this whole episode.
Hit the E button. Yeah.
But like a lot of supplementation discussions these days has to do with just kind of like addressing where we are. You know, most people who consume these supplements are not going to already have a perfect diet of chicken, rice, and broccoli, right? They're going to be consuming the cake on the weekends and stuff like that. And I think that it's a really valuable conversation. Maybe we're not Joey or a Vulture. We don't want to be like totally turning ourselves into trash bins. But for the most part, like we do kind of have to accept that like we're not going to home cook every single meal. And being able to deal with some of those bad sources of nutrition is just kind of part of being a human in 2025. So I kind of like that realistic thought process. How does this work into a product? Mike always brings up like, how would you formulate with this? But that's super realistic to how people are really going to consume these things these days.
Absolutely. And that's part of the reason we liked working with Radical as well, because being a completely virtual study, we weren't controlling people's diets during this study, just to see how this works in the real world, as opposed to like a lab setting where everything's perfect and controlled for. Humans aren't perfect and controlled for. I agree. Occasionally you're going to eat what someone would consider a bad meal for you, and it's just part of life.
Yeah. Well, thank you for this. This is, as always, it's super informative getting to talk with you about, broccolis and more.
Yep.
No, it's great talking to you guys again.
All right, we'll link to the ButyraGen articles, studies, and stuff in the show notes. We'll also have, I think, whatever we did last time, we just linked to your LinkedIn for that one.
Yep.
And people can contact you if they have any super science questions. If you're interested in formulating, you do have a sales team and everything too. But Ben and I would love to tinker with some of these ideas too. So anyone can contact any of us.
Perfect.
All right, Ed, thank you so much. It's been a fun hour, and we will. Oh, are we going to be seeing you at Supply Side? Are you going to be going to Vegas?
Yes, absolutely. NutriScience will be. We have a booth. I should know the number, and I sadly don't for this. I can send it to you, and then maybe you can link to it. Our sales team will absolutely be there. I'll be there talking to people that have science questions about our products. So please stop by.
I'll plug here at the end. We actually have a collaboration with NutriScience this year at Supply Side. We have a beverage that is using your guys' Innova bean. So you guys will have that at booth, and we'll definitely be by to hang out with the team and talk about it. So really excited to see you guys and anyone who comes by.
Yeah.
Please. Yeah.
And it is Supply Side Global booth 4243. Pretty good number there.
Thank you. Global. It's going to take me a while to get used to the global and not West.
I'm just going to say Supply Side.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Well, thanks, Ed. We appreciate your time.
Thank you, guys.